rupees crore sponsored by PSC Nano Mission, AT and ICMR for human diagnosis, brain target delivery, and label-free prognosis of Alzheimer's disease respectively. Also, he has made 31 M.Pharm student and recently getting 2 M.Pharm and 1 PhD scholar for major dissertation. He has delivered invite lectures on nanoparticle in various university-sponsored faculty development programs, national and state level SARS. He consecutively Troika Pharmaceuticals Limited, Department of Science and Technology sponsor 25 Patel Base Research Award for national level competition in Pharmaconova for year 2014, 2014, 15, 2015, 16, and Best Teacher Award for the Affiliated College confirmed by North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon. Recently, his PG research team awarded by Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council solicitation rupees 1 lakh investigation entitled of novel gelatin hybrid microsponge down. This is the very short introduction of Professor. If we go, he has published many research paper. I think his factor is above 100. So we got personal session. I would like to to Prashant sir, please knowledge us and guide the student for their future. So over to Prashant sir.
Thank you, sir.
Prashant sir.
Am I audible to? Yeah.
Yeah, sir. Just one.
Am I audible, sir?
I want to mention over here, our resource person has got the consecutive 3 times award from the Troika company for as a young innovator scientist in pharmaceutical sciences. Congrats to you, and for the upcoming scenario, you will put much more things regarding with the scientific era that we are expecting, sir. Over to you. Now session is all over to you.
Thanks a lot, sir. Am I audible to all?
Yes.
Okay. So, good afternoon, one and all. I hope you are safe at home in this pandemic situation. And in fact, it is indeed a pleasure to deliver a talk related with nanomedicine to a variety of audience. Just today, I had a call with Ande sir, and he told me that there are a number of participants who are postgraduate and as well as PhD and some degree candidates. So that's why I was a little bit in confusion that what kind of presentation I should focus on so that every aspect of nanotechnology would be covered. So here I have tried to satisfy the need of every student. The need of every student in the sense I have included some basics of nanotechnology which might be useful for degree level students. Then some of the research projects which are executed by our PG students. So it might be some guiding path for the student or aspiring student who are in a situation to work on a different drug delivery aspects or related with that nanotechnology as their major dissertation work. And finally, I have incorporated 2 or 3 slides related with funding, how to get funding, what is needed while making a proper proposal for funding to get a research project approved from a funding agency. So there are certain requirements. If we are able to fulfill those requirements, then there will be a more chance to get a funding from various government agencies. So here we will start with the presentation. And so shall we start?
Yes, sir. You can continue, sir.
Okay. Okay. Are these slides visible? I have shared the screen. Hello.
Yes, sir. Screen is visible. Slide is showing over there.
Okay. 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 So should we start the session?
Yes, sir. We can proceed.
Okay. So here, as the topic named is recent advances in nanoparticulate drug delivery system. So I hope that audience will get the maximum benefit by attending this webinar. Here I have focused some areas of nanoparticulate drug delivery system because as such when we are talking about nanoparticles, it is a very vast concept to understand. So I have focused some areas where we are working or with the researcher from our institute are working. These areas are nanoarchitectonics, theranostics and biosensors. So throughout this presentation, you will get understanding about this terminology, how these terminologies are coined, and what is the use of these terminologies related with nanotechnology. So prior to start with my presentation, I would like to share one story with you. It is not a fictitious story, just I think 7 or 8 days before when these organizers called me for this webinar. Uh, I have a laptop which is purchased in year 2007, and at that time I have purchased that compact laptop with a configuration of 512 MB RAM and 80 GB hard disk. Now, as I have discussed with the organization that I have to share the screen and I have to present over there, I have tried the number of softwares which are generally used like GoToMeeting, Zoom or WebEx. So what problem I am getting, the systems which are developed for today's day-to-day work or meetings, these are not compatible with old generation laptops. That exactly happens with me. So I'm totally unable with delivering a talk on laptop. In fact, today I am delivering this talk on my cell phone. Now see, this cell phone I have purchased a couple of years back with near about 4 GB RAM and 250 or something, 250 GB hard disk in this cell phone. Now compare the situation at in the year 2007 I have purchased this compact laptop, and in year 2017 or 18 means after 10 years I have purchased this mobile with very high configuration compared with that laptop. So especially the moral of the story is whatever technology we are thinking it is advanced today will not be advanced tomorrow. After 10 years, whatever cell phone or whatever configuration of cell phone we are using, we cannot assure that same configuration will be the gold standard after 10 years. There will be definitely a change. So that's what same thing is happening. If you see laptops are coming with different generations, with different RAM as well as hard disk drive. So old laptops are totally outdated as well as old operating systems like Vista and XP. These are outdated. So same thing might happen in terms of a drug delivery system. Whatever drug delivery system, the tablet, capsules, or any dosage form which we are taking today, we are satisfied with those, but we cannot sure that we will be satisfied after 10 years also. There might be a different scenario, there might be a different need where we have to use some advanced kind of drug delivery system. And the best example is this pandemic situation. Even though every country, like world's most powerful countries like US, they are having the nuclear weapons, but they are also not able to combat the situation of pandemic. That means we cannot say we are 100% able to tackle with the situation which maybe we have to face in future. So that's why each and every day researchers are trying with a different kind of drug delivery system when we are talking about in a pharmaceutical field, so that we will get precise medicine as well as it will be a target oriented drug delivery system. So that is the theme which we have to cover today in this webinar. I hope that the topic might be interesting for each and every participant who have enrolled for this webinar. So starting with this presentation, there are some contents which I have highlighted. The contents are the participants of this webinar will be able to understood the concept of nanoscience and technology, because today also we are talking about that this is the field of nanoscience or nanotechnology, but then also we are not getting exact difference. What difference is there in between the terminology, what nanoscience is and what nanotechnology is? Because this is the basic which should be understood by each and everyone who is working in the area of nanomedicine. There is a difference between nanoscience and nanotechnology. So that difference or basic related with this nanofabrication, we have to study it. The participants will also able to know the various recent advancement in nanomaterial engineering, because as such nanomaterial, nanomedicine, nanoparticles, these are also become outdated today. Today what researchers are doing, researchers are engineering these nanomaterials, means they are not only stopped with synthesis of nanomaterials, they are modifying these nanomaterials by decorating these or by surface engineering of these nanomaterials with various kind of ligands or targeting moieties. So these are some approaches which you will come to know during attending this webinar. The third thing, uh, the attendees will understand that how to write a research proposal and how to apply for a funding scheme. Because if you are an active scientist in the field and you have to work, definitely you need a sophisticated instrument, you need number of chemicals, glasswares, and this cannot be sponsored by your parent organization or what we can say the employer. You need to be able to grab some funding in terms of some monetary amount from different government agencies, and government agencies believe in you if you are writing your proposal in a very detailed manner which could be understood by the evaluator, and then only they will sanction the fund for your research work. So that's why we'll discuss a little bit about the research proposal writing and funding scheme. So starting with the presentation, as we are discussing the nanotechnology, firstly we should ask ourselves a question that how small is nano? Is it a really small? When we are saying nano, what might be the size? What will be the starting range of nanomaterial, and what will be the end of nanomaterial where it ends? So there is one eye-catching figure. If you see this figure, you will come to know that what is the difference between this nanometer scale. At the extreme left end, you are getting a water molecule, which generally we are writing it as a H2O, two hydrogen atom and one oxygen atom. The size is 0.1 nanometer. Come to the joint atom together, if 6 carbon atoms are joined together and they are forming some molecule like a glucose, the glucose single molecule will have a size range of 1 nanometer. Greater than that, if you are having a structure of antibody, it might be near about 10 nanometer. If virus is there, the size might be ranges in the range of 100 to 200 nanometer. And that is the point with COVID-19 virus. This virus is having a size in nanometer, because as we are seeing this pandemic situation, the virus, and to tackle with this virus, the researcher have to go in a nanometer scale. They have to study the functions and structure of this virus at the nanometer scale. Then greater than these viruses comes to the bacteria, which are having size range near about 1000 nanometer. Then if you are going for a cancer cell, a live human cell, it might be ranges in between 10,000 to 1 lakh nanometer. And if you see a full stop, which is printed on a printed paper, A4 size paper, the size will be near about 10 lakh nanometer. And after that, if you go for a tennis ball, the diameter of tennis ball will be near about 1 crore nanometers. So you can assume the size of nanoparticle, because generally nanoparticle deals in this range starting from near about 1 nanometer to 1000 nanometer, but specifically the size should be 1 to 100 nanometer, or as per the modern definition of nanotechnology, the material should have at least one dimension in a size range in between 1 to 100 nanometer. No doubt, like carbon nanotubes, the tubular structure may have the length in a micron, but the diameter should be in between 1 to 100 nanometer, and that's why it is called carbon nanotube. So I hope that you understood the concept of that how small is nano and what might be the size of nano. After that, if you will get you have to get a better idea about the nanoscale. I have another example for you. Compare with the human hair. Now everyone knows the human hair, and single human hair, you can assume the diameter of that hair. Now, this is the high resolution scanning electron microscopy image. Here you are getting, this is the single human hair, and these are the nanofibers. So the single human hair is about near about 1 lakh nanometer wide. So that is the difference. Means 1 lakh, if you divide this single hair into 1 lakh part, the one part of that will be in a scale of 1 nanometer. So that is the huge, what we can say, the smallest range of this material is at a nanoscale. So what is nano? A nano is 1 billionth of meter, or we can say it is 10 raised to power minus 9 meter. A normal person can walk 32 kilometers or about 20 miles in a one day. So it is estimated figure that if a normal person has to walk throughout the day, he can walk near about 32 kilometers or about 20 miles. If a person were shrink so that they were on nanometer tall, how long would it take them to walk the length of 500 rupees note? Now, suppose if we have shrunk that person up to a 1 nanometer scale, he is tall up to 1 nanometer and he has to cross the entire length of 500 rupees note. Can you assume that how much time is required? Because normal person can walk near about 32 kilometers within a day. But same person, when it is up to 1 nanometer, how much time is required to cross the 500 rupees note? Any guess? Okay. Now, as you are muted, you cannot share your guess, but you can write in a message box that near about tentative how much time is required, so that we will get understanding. So after calculation of this, the note, what we can say, 500 rupees note length might be roughly near about 6 inches, and to cross this 6 inches distance by a 1 nanometer person, it would take near about 24 years. So now you will come to know what nanotechnology is or what nano size is. So same person who can walk within a day up to 32 kilometers, when it comes to a nanometer scale, same person will need near about 24 years to cross a 500 rupees note. That is the best example of what I can share with you to assume the size of nanomaterial or nanometer size particles. What is the nanotechnology? The science of manipulation of atoms and molecules to make a new material and devices. This is this could be a definition of nanotechnology. That is the science to manipulate atoms and molecules. What we are doing, we are joining atoms together to form a molecule, or to molecules together to form a larger material, which might be in a range of nanometers. And this may be a functional material or some kind of devices at a nanometer range, which could be utilized. Now, this is interdisciplinary, where science and engineering interconnect. So we cannot say nanotechnology is a pure science or it is pure engineering. If you see the technological aspects, it involves both. It requires a science as well as engineering background. Then only you can work in nanotechnology. And that might be a point so that the nanotechnology work, it is interdisciplinary in nature. If you see our works, which would be highlighted in coming slides, it requires collaboration. You need a collaboration with physics department, microbiology department, biotechnology department. So that indicates that it is not a pure one branch where we can work nanotechnology. We need a collaboration from various backgrounds. So specifically, it is amalgam of science and engineering, which is interconnected to form a nanotechnology. Now, this is the manipulation which occurs at the range of 1 to 100 nanometer range, which we have discussed. It is roughly 10 to the power 9 meters, or we can say about 3 atoms long. Like 3 atoms, when joined together, they will form a dimension of near about 1 nanometer. So, for comparison, human hair, as we have compared, it is near about 80,000 to 1 lakh nanometer wide. So, that is the huge difference. Now, these nanoparticles might be various type or having various nature depending on the precursor. It may be organic nanoparticles like dendrimers, then layered biopolymers and liposomes. So these are the structures or nanostructures which are organic in nature. They may be hybrid nanoparticles. Hybrid means it is combination of organic and inorganic moieties. Like you can use a lipid bilayer, and within that lipid bilayer, you can incorporate silica which is inorganic. So we will say it is combination of inorganic plus organic. These are called protocells. Protocells means the silica core which is surrounded by a lipid bilayer like a liposome. Now this liposomal structure, inner core is hollow. But if you are having this inner core filled with an inorganic material like silica, the same structure would be called as a hybrid nanoparticles. Then there are some inorganic nanoparticles which are generally used in drug delivery, like carbon nanotube, mesoporous silica. It is purely inorganic silica or alumina, these materials, where we are creating pores on these nanometer size particles. So that's why these are called mesoporous. It is one of the fascinating area of research. In fact, we did some kind of work related with modification of this porous material, mesoporous material, which we will discuss in detail in coming slides. Then come to the gold shell nanoparticles. It is the gold shell. Then iron oxide nanoparticle. There are sulfate nanoparticles. These are the magnetic nanoparticles. Here also we have work on magnetic nanoparticles and quantum dots. Quantum dots, these are the surprising materials which are in a size range of generally 1 to 10 nanometers. Means these are having a very teeny size as compared with nanometer scale. When we are talking about, we can go up to 100 nanometers, but quantum dots, these materials should be in a size range of 1 to 10 nanometers. They will show when they are excited with UV light, they will show the emission spectra, and due to that there is a fluorescence. So that fluorescence is required in a number of techniques which are used in a medical field, which we will discuss later on. So for a time being, you should understand that these nanoparticles will be organic, hybrid and inorganic nanoparticles. Now coming to the next point, there are two parts of nanotechnology. Nanotechnology can be broken down into two parts. One is nanoscience and another one is nanotechnology. What I said, that there is a distinct difference between science and technology. The science means where researchers learn about the chemical and physical properties of material at the 1 to 100 nanometer scale. So what science is, just we are studying that what property we are getting if we are converting that material in a nanometer size starting from 1 to 100 nanometer range. So that kind of research we will say it is nanoscience. Take an example. Suppose if you are having the gold and that gold is converted up to 1 to 100 nanometer and you have converted it in a gold nanoparticle and you are studying the property. Property might be anyone, the solubility of that material or refractive index or color, the physical property. So this kind of study, it comes under nanoscience. And what nanotechnology is, where researchers develop and apply materials at this scale to develop a new product or method. That is turning nanostructure into usable tools and applications. For example, if I am making a silver nanoparticle, I will say it is kind of work which is related with science, and that is nanoscience. But when I apply those silver nanoparticles for wound healing or for antimicrobial activity, it is application part. Then it will come under nanotechnology. So that is the basic difference. Nanoscience means it is just study of chemical and physical properties, whereas nanotechnology is application of those materials into day-to-day life. Take an example in this experiment, researcher what uses, they use isopropyl alcohol and carbon 60 saturated toluene. There is a formation of a middle layer which is called interface, and this method or this methodology, it is called co-precipitation methodology or interfacial co-precipitation methodology. So while mixing isopropyl alcohol and carbon 60 saturated toluene, which are immiscible with each other, they will form an interface. And interface, there will be formation of a small thread-like structure which are called carbon 60 nanoviscous. Nanoviscous means these are fiber-like substances. When researchers develop these fiber-like substances up to this much part, means synthesis of this material, it comes under nanoscience. What another group of researchers did, they utilized these nanoviscous to develop a fabric. Means they might use some proportion of these nanoviscous, they are incorporated in a fabric, and they found that it is totally water repellent in nature. So you can see this is the application part. Means this much is science part, and from formation of nanoviscous to making it fabric, it is technology part. So that's why what we are saying, nanotechnology is combination of science as well as engineering. So both aspects are required. So generally this is this multidisciplinary study where we need collaboration in between science and technology. Then only we will come up with some fascinating solutions which are faced by day-to-day life. So here this nanofabrication, it is accomplished by two methods. One is top-down nanofabrication and second one is bottom-up nanofabrication. Name itself indicates top-down nanofabrication. That means it starts with a larger material and bring it down to the nanoscale. Means that is top-down. You have a coarse material, you are using some technique, you are providing energy and breaking down that larger material in smaller and smaller size till it becomes in the range of 1 to 100 nanometers. So that technique will be called top-down nanofabrication. Whereas in a vice versa situation, contradictory to this, we will have a bottom-up nanofabrication. In bottom-up nanofabrication, what happens? It starts with individual atoms and build upward to make a nanostructure. So it uses basically it uses the principle of molecular recognition. Means when you mix some atoms or molecules together, they are having a sub nanoscale. They identify each other, they join with each other, and they will grow in a clusters or larger structure in a form of nanoparticles. So this approach will be called bottom-up approach, because we are using a particles or molecules which are having smaller than nano size. They are coming together and they are forming a nanoscale material. That's why it is called bottom-up approach. So that is the exact difference between top-down. Top-down means from large material to small material, whereas the bottom-up is from smaller material to a larger material. Now here on this diagram, you will get a clear view what top-down approach is. So suppose if you are having a coarse material, you will apply some energy to this material which will convert into a coarser structure, and these structures, that is called exfoliation. Means we can say it is a tip of pencil which is made up of graphite. So when this graphite is vibrated, or if some high sonication frequency is applied, it is converted into a sheet-like structure, and these sheets are separated from each other and they form an exfoliated structure which is generally called as graphene. So we say this entire approach is top-down approach and we are getting a nanoparticle. Whereas in bottom-up approach, what we are using, we are having some atoms and molecules, which generally we are saying precursors, because we have to develop some reaction. So these are starting materials, that's why these are called precursors. These precursors, when they are joined together, they will form some larger structure which will develop in form of clusters. and these clusters are nothing but the nanoparticles. So ultimately what we are getting, the end product is nanoparticle. Just the mechanistic way or the what we can say methodology is different. In one of the approach we are going for top down, in another approach we are going for bottom up approach. And finally, these nanostructures can be further manipulated in different arrangement of atoms, like we can develop a tellurines. Tellurines means these are also called buckyballs. These are football like structures at a nano scale which are totally made up of carbon. This is the arrangement of carbon. Same spherical arrangement, when converted into some complex arrangement, it will convert into diamond. And when diamond is broken down into single sheet, it will form a graphene. These are called carbon allotropes. There are a number of examples of carbon allotropes which we are using in a day-to-day life. These are tellurines, diamond, graphene sheet, and so on. So finally, these are the nano products which we will get. I hope you understood this concept of nanofabrication by two methodologies, that is top-down nanofabrication and bottom-up nanofabrication. Now, what we are saying, this is the recent field or this is the recent development, but if you see, it is not a latest technology, nanotechnology. It is having a very old history. Nanotechnology, it is not totally new. If you see, there are some historical evidences that the Asian peoples have already used this technology to develop the product. So there are some evidences which we could highlight. Now, as we are saying, this is a new technology. Why we are saying new technology? Because what everyone says, that anything which glitter is not a gold. Because if anything which is shining, we cannot say it is gold, and we know gold for its purity, 24 karat gold or 22 karat gold, and we know that it is having a golden color. But same gold, see this figure, if you convert this gold in a colloidal form or in a nano form, when you go for a lesser and lesser size, the least size of this colloidal dispersion of gold will have a red color. Now here the old theory fails, that the gold is having golden color. That means you can assume the metal like gold, which is having its property that golden color, when it converts it to nano scale, the physical property entirely changes. And this is the beauty of this technology. The nanomaterials, same material when converted in form of nano, may show a different physical or chemical property which is desired. In terms of the drug delivery system or in terms of today's technology, we have to discuss about this, that the same physical material, when it is converted into nano form, may have a different physical or chemical property. So as we are saying, this is not a new, or we are saying this is not a new. This is one example. It is called Lycurgus cup. This Lycurgus cup, it is ancient Roman cup which is found, and this cup is having property that when you incident light on this cup on a front side, you will get a green color, and same light source when it is from a back side, when it passes or transports through this glass, same green color will convert it into red color. So when researchers studied this property of glass, that why same glass material, just by changing the direction of incident light, it changes color. One is green and another one red. They come to know that at an ancient time also, the people have used this gold and silver in a nano form. They have mixed it with a glass and they made some sculptures, some paintings or some devices which are the devices made up of glasses, and these glasses will be might be incorporated with nano silver or nano gold, and that's why they show the difference in color property. So here it is the clear historical evidence that we cannot say nanotechnology is a new thing. We are reinventing such kind of properties of materials which are already explored in a history, but they are hidden in history. Again, we have to explore those historical evidences. That is the another theme of future of nanotechnology. Now, this nanotechnology spans in many areas. Basically, many areas means it is for a solar cell or the engineering aspect. But what areas I have covered in this slide, These areas are the biomedical applications. Biomedical applications of nanotherapeutic. It is used for targeted therapy, for gene delivery, for detection and diagnosis of disease, for molecular imaging, then biomarker mapping and drug delivery. Biomarker mapping means biomarkers are some substances which are available in biological fluid. Biological fluid means it might be blood, saliva, urine, whatever fluid material which can be collected from a body. And these biomarkers are some disease specific substances which appear in that biological fluid. And for detection of that, we can use the nanoparticles or nanomaterials. We'll discuss it later on. So it is called biomarker mapping, where we are identifying the biomarkers which are present in biological fluid so that we can identify the laying disease condition in which disease the person is suffering from. It could be identified by biomarker mapping. So these are another aspect of nanotechnology. Now, just have some brief idea about application areas or commercial impact of nanomaterials. How this nanomaterial would revolutionize the entire field of engineering, technology, medicine. I have quoted just 2 or 3 examples, but if you go for a detailed search, you will get a number of examples of applications of these nanomaterials. Now, silver nanoparticles have good antibacterial and antiviral activity. If you find the literature, you will get number of research articles where these silver nanoparticles are explored in a literature for their activities like antibacterial and antiviral activities. So, most of the pharmaceutical companies are interested to develop this kind of formulation which incorporated with nanoparticles or silver nanoparticles. In fact, there are certain formulations which are marketed. This is the silver nanoparticle cream. There are certain paints which are available in market. I think there is one advertisement on television also that bacteria resistance or antimicrobial paint. So if you apply this paint coat on the walls or ceiling, then it assures that the bacteria may not retain on those walls because the paint is embedded with this kind of nanoparticles which are having antimicrobial activity like silver nanoparticles. So we can the paint have dyes industry where these nanoparticles could be utilized. Fabrics, it is another one. Take an example of the footwear socks. If we are using socks and due to growth of bacteria or dirt, there might be phenomena of some false smell or bad smell. So if these are incorporated with some antimicrobial material in this fabric structure, then it would be useful to develop this. As well as there are entire hydrophobic surfaces which are developed. Means if there is a spill of water or some materials, it will be repelled out. These are the materials. As well as in a market there are paints also which are commercialized that they will repel the water. So these are the application areas, as well as the fabric industry where some fabrics are developed which are called wrinkle-free fabrics or certain kind of fabrics which are also called water resistant or stain resistant. It is better term, stain resistant. If there is a problem of staining with cloth, these cloths can be modified with a nanotechnology so that it will be highly resistant to stain. So this is another application area. Come to the next commercial impact of the nanotechnology. It is in drugs, and that is our point of discussion. These nano-sized carriers can be used for the right location and to release the drug in a predetermined schedule. This is the beauty of these formulations, nano formulations. They select the right location so that unnecessary wastage of drug, or what we can say unnecessary travels of drugs throughout the body, is not required if you are going for a location specific therapy. Specifically, it is for cancer because our target is tumor. We do not need a concentration of drug throughout the normal tissue. Where concentration is required, it is only in a cancerous site or cancerous tissue. Then there is attachment of drugs to the nano size carrier. What we are saying, it is a modification of nano carrier. Then this modified medicine can kill the tumor. It is under investigation. And there are certain developments of nanobots. These are called nanorobots, which can clear the blockage in arteries. This is under development. So these are various application areas in medicine field. Then another fascinating application area, if you see, if you are able to identify this structure, it is nothing but the cell phone. Now, this cell phone, it is the technology. This cell phone is named as MOF, nanotechnology concept device developed by Nokia's research center and University of Cambridge. So it is collaborative work in between Nokia and Cambridge. So they have developed this MOF, which will be super hydrophobic as a nanotechnology base. The material will be super hydrophobic and it will be extremely dirt repellent. So this is one thing, that these cell phones are totally dirt repellent, and it will charge itself from available light source using photovoltaic nanowire glass. So this glass, which is made up of nanowire, they are having inherent property that whatever incident light is there, they will absorb those light and convert it in form of energy. So that's why the charging problem will not be there. When light source is there, automatically this device will get charged. And these nanoscale electronics have allows switching. It is another thing. If you see this another structure, it is like a steering wheel of a car. Same structure can be stretched in form of steering wheel. It can be attached on a steering wheel. So this is highly flexible mobile, because when we are talking about cell phones, the cell phones are rigid things. But the future might be promising where we can get the foldable cell phones. So we can fold those cell phones according to our needs, where we have to put that cell phone, whether it is in front pocket or back pocket, it will not create any problem. So that is another application area of nanotechnology in terms of electronic gadgets. Now, here we have concluded the first part, which is the what we can say related with the basics of nanotechnology. Now, to come to the next part where our research team is working, or specifically my research team is working. It is the concept of nanoarchitectonics. So the name or term seems to be a little bit confusing or complicated, what this terminology means, nanoarchitectonics. But simply, see, suppose you have purchased any particular land or particular area of 1000 square feet or 2000 square feet. What you will do, you will consult with architect that I have to build a house, and the size of house should be this much, whatever dimension is there, kitchen, study room, bedroom, you will give entire dimension to him. And now it is his responsibility to give a plan that within that particular land, how you can develop your own home, what you desired, what you have communicated with him. So it is called the part of architecture. Similarly, if you have a need of a specific structure of a nanoparticle and you have a methodology to develop that structure, then it is called nanoarchitectonics. For example, suppose I have to make a spherical particle, and experimentally I have performed experiment work and got a spherical particle. This is the concept of nanoarchitectonics. If I need a flower-like particle, I need a pillar-like particle, whatever different shapes are there, if I am able to perform that task, this is called nanoarchitectonics. So that is the concept, or we can say tailor-made concept, where we are using this. So this nanoarchitectonics, it is nothing but transformation of nanoscale structures in a particularly desired design. See, in drug delivery also you need a desired design. Desired design means if your target is inner components of cell, inner components of cells like mitochondria, or it may be other inner components of cells or nucleus, then you need a specific design of nanostructures so that they could be easily penetrate the lipid bilayer or cell membrane. They could pass from a cytoplasm. They should avoid all the degrading enzymes. They should penetrate into the nucleus, and if your target is nucleic acid, that structure should reaches up to the nucleic acid, whether it is DNA, RNA. So such kind of formulation aspect, it is called nanoarchitectonics. So majorly, I don't think so in a pharmaceutical field anyone is working in this field, but since last 8 years our research team is working in this area, which is nanoarchitectonics. But nanoarchitectonics, it is highly explored area in terms of electronics, where researchers are developing various nanostructures, as well as in physics also. But in drug delivery, very less explored literature is available, if you see. So it is the thing Nanoarchitectonics, which comprises of nano creation. Nano creation means peeling of atomic sheets of graphite slab to novel nanomaterial graphene can be obtained. It is called nano creation. Means you will have a large material means graphite rod. When this rod is conjugated at very high frequency, you will get a small sheet. These sheets will be in a nanometer scale. So that is called creation. Means from a precursor large material, you are creating a smaller nano sheet. This is called the nano creation. So this is called graphite. Graphite means which is the natural material, and you all know this since childhood when you have used pencils. The tip of pencil it is made up of graphite, but no one has assumed that this tip of pencil would be utilized to get a Nobel Prize. You don't believe me, but for the Nobel Prize winner, his experiment on a graphite rod, it is performed by a Nobel Prize winner. What they use a sellotape. They use a sellotape which is a stick on the surface of graphite rod, and they remove that sellotape. After removal of sellotape, they found that there are certain very microscopic structures which are attached to sellotape, and when they have explored them further, they studied it. This is the part of science, nanoscience. They studied the property of materials. They found that there is a huge difference in the property of your graphite and this material which is obtained in a nanoscale, and this material is named as a graphene. For same research, the researcher got the Nobel Prize. So what was the investment of researcher? Investment was very less. They had one pencil, they had one cellophane, sellotape, but the concept or idea, the Nobel Prize was for the concept or idea. They have discovered a totally new material which will revolutionize the entire industry, not only pharmaceutical industry, but every industry. Because if you search this term graphite or graphene in a Google search or Google Scholar, you will get a number of researcher articles. Thousands of research articles are there, out of which near about 15 or 20 research articles from our institute where we have developed different creations by using graphene. So this is the beauty of graphene. Another technique it is nano organization. Nano organization means various structures are produced experimentally using previously discovered materials. So if you have a previously discovered material, it is totally new material which is discovered, because previously discovered was graphite, but graphene was not known to anyone. When it is discovered, then only we will say it is invention. Then another thing is, you have a structure which is identified previously, but it is molded in a way, or you have organized in a way according to your desire, like nano architectonics, what we are saying. Take an example of carbon nanotube. Now see, these are the cylindrical structure. These are totally made up of carbon only. The honeycomb-like structure, when it is appeared in a cylindrical frame, it is called nanotube. So this structure, it is called nanotube. When these number of cylindrical structure overlap with each other, these are called multi-walled nanotube. Now, suppose if you are having any methodology or any chemical reaction by which you can unfold this structure or cut this cylindrical structure, you will get a plate-like structure. So what is it? It is nano organization. Material is same, but that material by chemical treatment, it has changed the dimension of that material. From cylindrical, it will have plate-like dimension. So here we will say it is carbon nanotube, but the resultant structure will be graphene, because graphene is a two-dimensional sheet or two-dimensional structure, which is having only two dimensions, whereas when you will have carbon nanotube, it is three-dimensional structure. So that is the difference between nano creation and nano organization. Now, this term, we have started working with this term in year 2012, and we studied the different available literature related with nano architects which are available for cancer therapy, and we come up with one excellent review article which was published in year 2014, that is nano architectonics in cancer therapy and imaging diagnosis. So if you refer this article, you will get further details what nano architectonics is and how it could be utilized for a drug delivery purpose. It was our one area of research. The another area of research is theranostic. We are working in a field of theranostic. Now this term, if you observe it closely, you will observe there are two terminologies which are joined together. One is therapy and another one is diagnosis. So that is called theranostic. Therapy or therapeutic and diagnostic means if you have a same material which could be utilized for a therapy as well as diagnosis of disease within a same structure, then we will say these are the theranostic structure. Now these theranostic structures are there are certain examples or some studied researchers like ferrofluid. Ferrofluid means these are iron oxide nanoparticles, which are magnetic nanoparticles. These were synthesized and characterized as possible agent for medical treatment and diagnosis. Now, what researchers did, they used novel iron oxide based nanoparticles. That means ferrofluids. They were investigated as a contrast agent for magnetic resonance imaging, MRI imaging. Because when we are saying MRI imaging, you need a material which is susceptible under magnetic field. And this is the property which could be shown by ferrofluid or which could be shown by these materials which are called iron oxide nanoparticles. So these iron oxide nanoparticles can be synthesized in lab only. In fact, we have developed different iron oxide nanoparticles in lab, and we can incorporate the magnetic property in these iron oxide nanoparticles so that these are become super paramagnetic. These super paramagnetic structures could be utilized for MRI imaging. That means if you have to get an image of soft tissue like a brain, then you can go for the ferrofluids or iron oxide nanoparticles. So this is one reported study which is performed in Institute of Material Science, this NCSR at Democritos. What this study is, if you observe, they use experimental animal mice. They utilize one coil, which is highly sensitive coil, to record the temperature in a brain of that experimental animal. It was the experimental setup. There was one thermal imaging camera, and that animal was placed in front of thermal imaging camera. So here, they have created one brain tumor inside experimental animal in mice, and they observe the temperature of that particular area. You are if you are getting this image, you will get a clear yellow dot at that particular space in experimental animals. That means the ferrofluid which is injected to that animal, it is accumulated entirely in a one place. It is due to application of magnetic field. So that is one thing. You can have a targetability. You can apply magnet, and due to application of magnetic field, the entire material or nano material, that is ferrofluid, which is circulating in the blood, it will collect it at one side only in a tumor environment. It is one thing. And along with that, they observe that when we apply alternate magnetic field, there is a certain kind of vibration in those nanostructures or ferrofluid. And due to vibration, there is a slight increase in temperature. And this slight increase in temperature, it is termed as hyperthermia or local hyperthermia. This local hyperthermia, it is another thing which is under investigation, and it is found that if we raise the temperature in a tumor environment or slight raise in tumor environment temperature, result in cell death of tumor cell only. It will not form normal cell. So it is a very fascinating area of research where this local hyperthermia could be utilized to kill the cancerous cell. If you are familiar with existing techniques like chemotherapy or radiation therapy, you come to know that they are having various unwanted effect or undesired effect. When patient is suffering from this kind of disease and they are treated with radiation therapy or the chemotherapy, you might have seen the situation of those patients. So in those cases, what problem is with existing technology, these are what we cannot say, these are not particular cell specificity, or they are lacking cell specificity, because our target is abnormal cells or tumor cell only, but unnecessarily we are killing normal cells of the body, and that's why it results in unwanted effect or undesired effect. So it is one area of research which is called theranostic, where you can monitor the progress of disease. That's why diagnosis, you can monitor the diameter of this particular tumor throughout the drug delivery time or drug delivery length. So here simultaneously you can perform the therapy as well as the diagnosis of material. Then related with this, we have published one article in Encyclopedia of Biomedical Polymer and Polymeric Biomaterials. It is from Taylor and Francis. So for further details related with theranostic, what theranostic is and what these different nano structures like magnetic micellar structure, the theranostic application, you will get more detailed idea about it, or you can just go for a Google Scholar. You will get different articles related or specially devoted issues related with theranostic. It is another thing. So till now we have covered these two areas, nano architectonics and theranostic. Third thing where we are working, it is biosensors. Now biosensors, from figure only you will understand what concept we are working on. The biosensor means any device or any nano structured material which could be utilized for a sensing purpose. So these red dots or pink color dots, we will say these are the analyte. Analyte means substance to be identified or substance to be estimated. Suppose if I am interested to identify whether the patient is suffering from diabetes, what clue I have? I have to detect the glucose concentration in blood. Is it right? Now, for that purpose, I will say glucose or concentration of glucose in a blood is analyte. So these are the glucose molecules. What I need one a layer which will sense those glucose molecules. Like suppose I have enzyme which is glucose oxidase. So I know glucose oxidase is having ability to oxidize the glucose molecule. That means when I decorate this layer with glucose oxidase enzyme, I know that this small glucose molecule will join with glucose oxidase and there will be oxidation of glucose. Now, the rate of oxidation of glucose will decide the amount of glucose which is present. So that's why you need a transducer. So these biosensors are made up of analyte, then sensory layer and transducer. Transducer, role of transducer is it will quantify the amount of analyte which is present in a system and it will come into signal. Now you will say that we are having a simple technology to detect glucose in biological fluid. Then why we should go for this complicated technology? So it is only for your understanding I have discussed this approach, but analyte might be different. For example, if you know there is no particular diagnosis available for Alzheimer's disease. In Alzheimer's disease, till now there is no particular diagnosis technique is available, but there are some reports that some proteins which are called beta amyloids, they get increase in a blood, but the concentration of beta amyloid protein in a blood, it is in picometer range. Picometer, you can assume it is lower than nanometer. Means 1 nanometer or sorry, 1 nanogram is comprises of 1000 picograms. So such a negligible concentration of any material or analyte is present in blood. So the existing sophisticated technique could not be utilized to estimate such a very less quantity, because if you are having HPLC, UV, what concentration you can detect up to nanogram. But when you have to go for a picogram, you don't have a choice. You have to go for development of some sensing technology, and these are called biosensors. So biosensors are the devices which could analyze the various analytes which are from biological origin. The biological origin means these are the chemicals which are found in body. They may be hormones, they may be body secretions, they may be indigenous body materials which we have to identify. So these are the biosensors, and nanotechnology plays a crucial role. We can use nanoparticles to sense these materials, and that's why these are called nanobiosensors, which are developed by a nanotechnology. So again, we are also trying to cover up this technology, and in fact, we have published one review article related with one technique, which is layer by layer technique. It is self-assembled technique which is used for targeting and biosensory application, as well as we have performed one research work which is the green synthesis of reduced graphene oxide. We have used graphene oxide, and it is used for a detection of urinary STD. Urinary STD means the human chorionic gonadotrophic hormone, which is the indication of pregnancy. So from urine sample, the pregnancy could be identified because the marketed strips which are available, these are the strips which are somewhat expensive because they use antibodies. So here we have tried to develop a method which is not necessarily based on antibodies, just it is the layered structure which is made up of chitosan and folic acid, and it could be used for detection of or biosensing of that material, STG or urinary STG. So we found some promising results and we have published those results in these articles related with biosensors. Now these are the three technologies which we have discussed: nanoarchitectonics, theranostics, and the third one, biosensor. So these are the areas which we have worked till date: nanocrystals, nano self assembly. We have worked on nanocomposite, then quantum dots, mesoporous and layer by layer nanostructures, theranostic nanoparticles, and also our research group is working on polymer modification and assembled structures, and surface engineering of nanobiomaterials. So in recent 2 or 3 years, most of our research group focus is on surface engineering and quantum dots. These are the two areas where our research highlighted nowadays. But then also we have worked in all these areas, and fortunately we are having some good quality of publications related with all these concepts. Now, as I told you, the second part of my presentation is related with PG students who are going to undertake some major dissertation work in the coming year. So how could this topic could be identified, or some work, or what we can say novel research work could be performed? These points would be for their use here. The first technique which I am discussing, it is layer by layer. It is part of nanoarchitectonics, where we are developing a self-assembled structure. Self-assembled structure means here you need not to go for any machine, or you need not to go for any energy to impart energy in a system. There will be self-assembly, means automatically the atoms and molecules will join together and they will form a nanostructure. So this nanostructure, when it is formed by layer technique, it is called layer by layer self-assembly technique. So there is no need of any energy. Take an example. Suppose if you have a negatively charged particle which is in a nanoscale, nanoparticle, this negatively charged particle will react with positively charged polymer. So what will happen? There will be electrostatic attraction between positive and negative charge, and this very small layer of polymer will remain adhered to the surface of this particle for a prolonged period of time. After that, we have to wash to remove the unreacted polymer. Then same material is incorporated into negatively charged polymer. Means you need two kind of polymer. One is positive and another one is negative, so that depending on your need, you can apply the number of codes. So your protocol will be repeated application of positive and negative polymer with successive washing to remove unreacted polymers. So this structure will be developed where your core material is totally coated with number of negative and positive layers. So finally, what happens if you need not interested in this core material can be solubilized, and due to solubilization you will get a hollow structure. So these hollow structure, these are called self-assembly or nanocapsules. So generally these kind of structures are required for protein and peptide delivery. If you are having some DNA, RNA, and you have to protect it from external environment, this is the best technique which is available, which is called layer by layer technique. In fact, this research could be done, but at our institute, by considering the resources, we have developed this technique on some existing drug material, because we wasn't able to proceed with some materials which are from biological origin like protein. But for proteins, this will be the promising approach, because percent loading as compared with the existing technique of microencapsulation or other technique, the percent loading of material will be very high in these structures. So that is advantage of LBS structure. So in fact, from this, we had one review article, which is from layer structure, LBS structure. Then we had two research articles published with self-assembled. One study was done with a drug prednisolone, and for another, we have used the assembled gelatin polystyrene sulfonate polyelectrolyte nanocapsules. So these are the two articles which are related or published with layer by layer approach. Then another area of research is the LBL or layer by layer polymeric ultra thin sheets, which are abbreviated as nano sheets also. This work, what I am highlighting, it is totally work which is performed by PG students. So this work was performed in year 2013, and that work the student was selected for the regional level, university, regional, state level Avishkar competition, and finally he grabbed second prize in the national level convention, which was held in 2013. The concept was very simple, what I can say, but it need a collaboration, and generally we are lacking in that area. We are not concentrating on collaboration. So this is one kind of instrument which is called a spin coater. I'm sure you are not familiar with this instrument because it is not used in pharmaceutical field. This spin coater, it is used in a physics lab. If you have a chance and you have visited any physics lab, just ask for the spin coater. The spin coater, it is used to make semiconductors in those areas. So what we need for such kind of collaboration by science and application part, this is the instrument, but the physics person don't know what is the applicability in medicine field, and in the medicine field we don't know that this kind of instrument is available. Now the concept is that the spin coater, if you see this central disc, it is a glass disc or a wafer which is rotated at very high speed, and this is the device where the excess of polymer can be collected. So what we have to do, we have to apply polymer on this disc. So when we apply polymer on this disc, there will be continuous rotation, the excess amount of polymer will be thrown away, and you will have a very thin sheet on the surface of this glass slide. So what we did, we used the concept of sandwich phenomena. Sandwich phenomena means firstly we have used pullulon polymer, we have made a thin film, then we have used a drug solution in polymer as a second layer, and again we have used a pullulon. Now what finally we got a very thin transparent plastic-like material which is biodegradable in nature, which is made up from pullulon, and we have utilized it as a wound dressing material. Because if you see existing dressing which is available in market, we are having problem with existing dressing because we cannot observe the progress of the recovery or healing of wound, because when you apply handy plaster or some kind of bandage on that wound, you cannot observe the inner side. So the beauty of this formulation is you will have a transparent tape or transparent film which can be sticked on the surface of wound, and progressive closure of wound could be observed. So that was the beauty of this formulation which we have used, and this is the result which we got. What we created third degree burn in the experimental mice model, and this burn wound was injected with a microorganism Staphylococcus aureus to induce the sepsis or infection in that particular area of burn wound. So what we did, we applied this thin film on the experimental animal, and in these photographs you can observe after 28 days there is maximum recovery or maximum healing from that burn wound. Whereas if you see control, that is untreated, we haven't applied any thin film on this experimental animal, there was the worst condition of the wound, whereas there was maximum recovery of wound by applying the thin LBL polymeric film, which is transparent in nature. Because in this figure, the film is applied, but you cannot observe it as it was transparent, and it will stick. It was stick on the surface of it, and depending on this filed one patent of this technology that we have used spin coater, and we have developed the wound dressing which is called self disabling wound dressing for a therapeutic purpose. So it is the work which is carried out by a PG student only as a MPharm research work. Then another research work which we have carried out, it is fabrication and surface engineering of mesoporous material. Now it is another area of research, the mesoporous materials. It is another nano architect which is under investigation, that it could be utilized for a pharmaceutical purpose. Because mesoporous materials are, there are three porous material, or porous material could be categorized into three forms. One is microporous, mesoporous, and third one is macroporous. So the size range will be less than 20 angstrom unit, means 2 nanometers. If any porous material having size less than 2 nanometers, these materials are called microporous materials, like zeolite or activated carbon. The natural material, they are having inherited pores. You might have seen in some of the television advertisement, activated carbon, it is having pores which can absorb the dirt. So these are having the size less than 20 angstrom unit. The size in between 20 angstrom unit to 500 angstrom unit, that is from 2 nanometer to 50 nanometer, it comprises one region which is called mesoporous material. So mesoporous materials are having size range from 20 to 500 angstrom unit, or we'll say 2 nanometer to 50 nanometer. So these are the various structures which are MCF. This is called mobile crystalline material. These are the names. Then MCM, mobile crystalline material 41, SBA, this is Santa Barbara amorphous type of material 15. So these are some examples which could be synthesized in lab also. And specifically these mesoporous structures are having beauty that this could be utilized for two purposes. We can either go for a sustained release of drug, or we can enhance the solubility of drug depending on our need, because these are totally porous structures. And if you go for a larger scale, this is a macropores which are having size greater than 500 nanometers. These are 500 angstrom unit, means 50 nanometers. These are diatomites, inorganic materials, polymers. Diatomites means these are the natural species of microorganisms which are available naturally, and they are having these macroporous structures. Means they are having pores. Now, how to formulate this in a lab? If you have to synthesize this material in a lab, inorganic mesoporous materials in a lab, that is nanomaterials in a lab, the phenomena is simple. You might be familiar while studying physical pharmacy. You might have one phenomena which is called the CMC, critical micellar concentration. Critical micellar concentration means it is the concentration of surfactant. At that concentration, there is formation of micellar structure, means is spherical structure. Surfactant is having two groups. One is head and tail group. Head, which is hydrophilic group, and tail group, which is hydrophobic group. So when you add it in the water, they orient themselves in a particular design, and this design is a spherical structure at particular concentration, which is for CMC. So these micellar structures, when these are developed, these are the organic precursor, or we can say surfactant, and we have added these triangular structures of inorganic precursor, like we can say it is alumina, or it might be silica. So there will be condensation of this precursor molecule, that is inorganic molecules, on this micellar structure. And when you apply heat, like you use muffle furnace at 500, 600 degree temperature for a certain period of time, there will be calcination. Calcination means removal of organic moiety. This entire structure will get collapsed, and you will get a porous structure. And these pores will be in the range of 20 to 500 angstrom unit. And these pores can be a good host for a drug molecule. Drug molecules can be entrapped in every pore of this material, and these materials could be utilized for drug delivery purpose. So this is the concept of mesoporous materials for a drug delivery. So depending on this theme, we have developed some technique in our lab, and students have worked extensively to develop these mesoporous materials. So mechanically, this is the structure of surfactant. Means this yellow portion indicate head group, that is hydrophilic in nature, and this tail portion, black color tail portion, it indicates hydrophobic region. So when you add it up to a CMC, there will be formation of a spherical micellar structure. Spherical micellar means here all head groups are oriented together and tail groups are oriented towards the outer face, and it forms a hydrophilic pocket. Now this hydrophilic pocket, that is formation of micellar structure. The micelles are formed which are organic in nature. Now this is surface micelle. We have this of this. Now, after deposition, you will come to know that there is a polycondensation. Due to polycondensation, the precursor molecules, it is totally deposited on the surface of micelle, and you will get such kind of completely polycondensed material, which is micellar structure, which is surrounded by. Now, here, this blue color indicates the inorganic precursor molecule, which is condensed at the surface of this micellar structure. Now, when we are heating it, we have heated it up to 500 to 600 degrees centigrade. The organic material, organic means this inner material, that is organic material, will get calcined and it will come out from the system, and you will get a porous system, which will be mesoporous material. Now, next step will be this porous system is surface engineered. Means we have to attach some drug on the surface of this structure which is developed, or mesoporous structure which is developed. So for that purpose, we have to proceed for surface decoration or surface engineering. Now, the concept of surface engineering is we have this structure which is mesoporous alumina. Mesoporous alumina, it will have a surface hydroxyl group and it will have a pores. Now this is the nanoparticle which is having nanoparticle pores, which are nano diameter pores which are present, and surface hydroxyl group. Now we have to activate this surface hydroxyl group because we have to attach the drug. So that's why we have to ionize it, and we need to ionize this hydroxyl group on the surface. Once we have hydrolyzed it, and after ionization, we need, this is one agent which is called silane coupling agent. Here, this red color group, it is silica, and this green color group, it is amine. So it is aminopropyl triethoxysilane. It is called APTS, aminopropyl triethoxysilane. It is also called coupling agent or silane coupling agent. The role of the silane coupling agent is we are incorporating amine functionality on the surface of this hydroxyl functionalized mesoporous material, because for binding of a drug, we need amine functionality. That means if our drug contains carboxyl group cannot bind to this hydroxyl group. We need amine functionality in that particular structure. So that's why we will have the attachment of this group. And after attachment, the amine functional group will attach to the surface. And after attachment to the surface, we will have the attached structure. And after attached at a particular pH, the powder material will convert into gel, and this gel will provide the sustained release. That was the intention of this research, and again, it get published with Taylor and Francis. This pH sensitive hydrogen, which we have made, which is called supramolecular hydrogen for treatment. Now, these are some ongoing work in our lab, that is functionalization of PO with receptor specific ligand. We are using folic acid. Like in breast cancer, it is observed that the folic acid receptors are increased, or there is a tremendous increase in folic acid receptors on a cell, specifically on a cancerous cell, breast cancer cell. So if we bind folic acid with nanostructures, we can target those cancerous cells or breast cancer cells easily. So that's why we are trying for functionalization of these nanomaterials, investigation of new methods for preparing reduced graphene oxide. Now, whatever we have employed, it is oxidized graphene oxide. Now, our aim is to reduce that graphene oxide for various applications. Then we are in a attempt to develop a theranostic potential of graphene-based nanocomposite, which could be utilized for MRI and fluorescence microscopy. And we are in a field of synthesis of high-yield quantum dots for biosensory application. And the heteroatom dope. Heteroatom dope means another atom like nitrogen or sulfur, which is doped in a structure of graphene quantum dots, which will have a different applicability. These are our future research, which are planned research. Then it is one project. Why I am showing this? The awardee, Mr. Ajinkya Nikam, he was my student in year 2016-17. In first year only, he come with some idea, and we developed one idea and submitted it to Society of Research Initiative and Sustainable Technology and Institution. It is called DBT, BIRAC, the BIRAC funding agency, where we have applied it. And this project was selected because it was just idea. That idea was selected, and Mr. Ajinkya was awarded rupees 1 lakh to develop a product. So the product was, we have developed a gelatin hybrid microsponge with the silver nanoparticle incorporation. So we have developed this spongy material where the nanoparticles are incorporated. So if there is a continuous bleeding or wound, this sponge, which is made up of gelatin, could be applied on that wound, and it will release the medicament and prevent infection of that wound. It was the idea. So this is the amount, 1 lakh rupees he has received. We have purchased some chemicals. We have developed some in-house glass laboratory apparatus to make this foam. And by performing this foam, we have developed a spongy structure. And same for the next stage, it was selected for Central Reserve Police Force Grand Challenge. We got up to third level. Means there was a first level which we have cracked, second level, and final level, third level. Here we have presented this product which we have developed by this funding, and they also appreciated it. But problem was that there was another industry which was ready to market the product. So that's why, as this is academic research, it was not selected as company competitor was there. But then also it is recognized up to the third level where it was selected. So it is kind of work which is performed by a student. It is the another aspect of this webinar for the budding scientists who are studying postgraduate courses. Now, the last aspect of my this presentation is the research grant. How we can get money to have a potential research work. Firstly, we have to find the research problem. Firstly, we have to focus on a research problem. Now, you will say, if you have to find a research problem, you will say COVID-19. This is the research problem. You will try to develop a proposal. But consider that when you submit the proposal, you are not only the person who is submitting proposal for COVID-19. There are thousands of researchers from India who will apply for this scheme. And that's why, firstly, identify the research problem. Identify the research problem where really there are very less researchers who are working. Then only you will have a chance to grab the opportunity. Because if you are doing some kind of research work which is already done or which is undergoing by other researchers, then the preference of your research proposal will be less. And that's why we have identification of genuine research problem. Once you have identified genuine research problem, you will have a 50% confidence in your proposal that no, my proposal is having something different from other researchers. Because as I said, if you are applying for COVID-19, there are number of proposals which are from government agency, they are receiving day by day for COVID-19. But in this situation also, you are targeting any another disease which is having a similar kind of situation, then it will be preferred. So firstly, find the research problem. Second is fabricate simple approach to trigger. Once you have identified the research problem, don't go for a very complicated approach to tackle with that situation. Because what industry or what government or what everyone needs, you should have a simple solution for a very complex problem. Is it right? So that's why while developing or writing your research proposal, try to focus on how simple the technique could be. Suppose if I am writing a research proposal and it need a machines or equipment of rupees 5 crores or cough and cold, no one funding agency will fund me 5 crore rupees to perform a research in an area of cough and cold. Is it right? But if I am working for a certain kind of disease which is really rare or where there are very less research which is carried out, then it is affordable that any funding agency will try to give 5 crore rupees. But the technique should have a potential. Or another thing, if I am focusing a disease, I should need a minimum resources. I should have a very simple technology by which I can trigger that situation so that there will be more acceptance. Then third and important thing is literature survey, because you will get a theoretical background or identification of problem only through a very detailed and specific literature survey. You have to go for targeted area through patent research article on Google Scholars and other searching sites, and then only you will come to know what other researchers are doing, what was their result, and what remaining work is there where you can work. So that's why you have to focus on literature, existing literature in terms of patent, published articles. Go in a detail. If you have selected a particular area, find out the number of articles which are present. And another thing, find out the literature which is published from India and outside India. It is another thing which is important in every research proposal. Even though you go for any funding agency, it is one of the aspects that how much work is carried out in India and how much work is carried out outside the India. Then design your own hypothesis by collecting expertise. Means you have to come up with idea, you have to develop your hypothesis that if I will develop such kind of drug delivery system, I will get that benefit. But again, it is not a task of one person. You need to take opinion of others, collaborators. Like, as I said, you might need some people from physics background, microbiology background, biotechnology background, chemistry background, ecology background. So firstly, discuss with those people that I have an idea, I have to work in this manner, and whether could that particular thing could be accomplished by performing some collaboration with you. So if that person say, okay, it is scalable or we can perform that task, then only you can develop your own hypothesis that in this manner I will proceed for this research work. So that's why developing hypothesis, it is very crucial step while writing for a research, right? And write down and compare with current national and international scenario. What I said, concentrate on this word, current. Sometimes researchers apply for the research fund and the idea is for very old situation. What I said, current. What is the need of current hour? It is also very important, because nowadays, no doubt, if 100% funding is given out of 100%, the Indian government will give 70 or 80% to COVID, because it is need of hour, it is current situation. But there will be chance of another 20-30% for other diseases, even though there is a 70% funding for COVID. So that's why we have to compare what is the national status of this particular funding and what is the international scenario of your research proposal. So what international community is working on and how much work is carried out in India, and what is expected. There should be maximum work which is carried out outside India, and there is very less research work which is carried out in inside India, so that you will come up with a point that very less research is carried out in India, and that's why I am going to undertake this research proposal to work in this particular area. So that is the thing. That's why you have to compare the national and international status. Then the research grant proposal. A number of people ask me that what should be incorporated in a research proposal. Simple. There are number of funding agencies. They are having their own requirements, but there are some common points which needed by every funding agency. The common points are technical details. Technical details means material, method, what material you are using, method, what instrument you need. These are the technical details. The research problem and their solution. The problem which you are highlighting and what solution you are giving to that particular research problem. Hypothesis. Hypothesis means what is your aim? By consultation with collaborators, what your hypothesis is, how you are going to deal with that particular research work. Then current national and international research which is carried out, the requirement of chemical instruments for your proposed project, then summary of your research work, and the most important is refreshing title. Because whenever you are submitting your proposal, the first thing the reviewer will see, it will be the title of your research proposal. So if you are writing very vague title, even though your topic seem to be interested, the evaluator will not be interested in your work because due to that vague title. So you have to select a high catchy title so that there will be generation of interest from the examiner or evaluator point of view that what would be there in the proposal because the title seems very promising. So that is the thing you have to think about the title of your proposal, and it should be a very refreshing title. So here there are number of agencies. I have identified some, but it is not. I cannot say it is the complete list of funding agencies in India. These are Department of Science and Engineering (DST). Then there is Science and Engineering Research Board (SERC). It is one subsidiary of Department of Science and Technology. They are giving funding for early career research. Means those who have just submitted their thesis, PhD thesis, or awarded with PhD degree and having less than 2 years in service, just join the employer, they will apply for early career. Then extramural research funding, it is the name is changed to Core Research Grant (DRG). It is for any researchers who are working in the field, and there might be an age limit. I think it is near about 40 to 45. If less than this, the researcher will get fund. Then there is high risk, high reward research. Means you have just idea, you haven't performed any practical work, risk involved is very high, you may get a positive result, you may get a negative result, but if you get a positive result, the result will be surprising to entire world. So if you are having such kind of idea, that's why it is called high risk, but if it is accomplished, you will have a high reward. Means the projects which are having high patentability or the need of our proposals will be comes under this high risk, high reward. Then startup for young scientists, and there are many more schemes. Then another funding agency is Department of Biotechnology, which is related with biotechnological work in area of drug delivery. Then there is one international agency, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which also fund in India for research work in drug delivery. Then there is Board of Research in Nuclear Science. These are BRNS, related with nuclear medicine, or if you are using some radio labeling in your drug delivery system, then you can apply for BRNS. Then there is Department of Atomic Energy, India, that is DAE. Then CSIR, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. Then there is Biotechnology Industry Research Assistant Council, that is BIRAC. Then UGC DAE. So UGC DAE consortium, these are located in various centers throughout India. And if you are having some proposal, you can collaborate with researchers who are working in UGC DAE. If that researcher interested, you can write up a collaborative project and you will get funding at your host institute as well as at that lab of UGC DAE, so that part of the work can be completed at your institute and part of the work can be completed in UGC lab. Then there is UGC, University Grant Commission. These are also invites proposals in basic science category. Then there is Department of Science and Technology, one scheme which is called FIST. This FIST scheme, this is for fund for improvement of science and technology infrastructure. It is institute specific. It is not a person specific scheme for a particular college which is having a very high what we can say repute in terms of research. For those colleges, they can go for FIST, where funding limit is there up to 5 crores, could be given to the private organization. Then more than 5 crores could be given to government organization. Then there is one trust which is Lady Tata Memorial Trust. It awards scholarship to PG student as well as researcher in the field. Then there is one Wellcome Trust, DBT India Alliance. This is another agency. So these are the agencies which are located in India. Similarly, if you have some proposal and you know that any person or any researcher from another country is working on similar line, you can personally contact that researcher and go for a collaborative proposal. Collaborative proposal means there are number of joint call for proposal. Means suppose if two countries are involved, suppose India and France, this is the funding agency. Now DST will fund to the Indian researcher, and this agency will fund to the France researcher, provided that the both researchers should have collaboration. Part of the study will be completed in India and part of the study will be completed in France. So for different countries, there are different proposals or different agencies which are working, like DBT, DST, and different countries. They have planned the proposals, provided that you need a foreign collaborator or any person who is working in foreign university in a particular field. You can collaborate with him and you can apply for funding. So I hope that this is a brief briefing about this funding scheme will enlighten some of the participants that how to go for funding for the proposals. So finally, I would like to conclude my topic with a bottom line that the next thing or next big thing is really small. Actually, in every seminar or presentation, whenever we are conducting webinar or seminars or FDPs, in my every presentation, this is my last line in the presentation, because as I am dealing with nanoparticles, I use this term. The next big thing is really small, and if you correlate with current situation, this is the perfect thing. That next big thing is really small. The virus is really small in a nanometer diameter, but it is the big thing for the entire world. And that's why we can say the next big thing is really small. So this is the final bottom line, and with this final bottom line, I would like to conclude this session. So I would like to thank each and every participant for their patient listening of this entire webinar. I know that there was somewhat some. I have covered some topic in a fast manner, because what problem is there? The entire presentation, if I go in detail, I cannot correlate with each and every participant who is starting from graduation up to post graduation and PhD level. So that's why I have started with a very slow pace, dealing with basics of nanotechnology, and completed in a fast manner, expecting that the postgraduate and PhD participants are known to the maximum facts which I am discussing. So here I would like to thank the organizer, the principal, Dr. Bakal sir and Savarkar sir of Dr. Gode College of Pharmacy and Institute of Pharmacy, for giving me this opportunity to interact with you audience. And specifically, I would like to thank the organizer, Professor Ande sir, Professor Gullane sir, because they have taken a lot of efforts. Because I know that since last 3-4 days we are conducting some mock session, and problem was from my side, because as I told at the start of session that I have outdated laptop, and that's why there is a problem. So I hope after this lockdown, firstly, the first thing what I will do, that I will purchase the laptop with the latest configuration. But again, I assure you that after 10 years, whatever technology I am purchasing today, it would become outdated tomorrow. So here, with this brief discussion about this entire topic, I would like to conclude my topic and this presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much. And sir, it is up to
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful conversation regarding with the nanoscience and nanoparticulate drug delivery system, as well as the grants and
Thank you.
funding agencies that can offer the various type of funds for regarding with the research work in India. Currently, the scenario regarding with this nanoparticle science is blooming right now, because of the market is flooded with this one. Older drugs are repurposing for these purposes right now. You have highlighted very core areas regarding with this nanosciences like that of the biosensors, nano architectures, quantum dots, ultra thin
Yeah.
bits, the hydrogels. These are the things which are not much dictated in the books, but as a part of a researcher, you have highlighted very wonderfully. Hope that all the participants get much more ideas regarding with the current scenario of the nanoparticle and nanosciences. So I would like to open the session for the discussion, and if anyone have the queries regarding with the today's session, they can put their message in a chat box. So I can convey that message to the resource person, as well as they can take the conversation with him. Anyone having the question regarding with this, please put up your question in chat box. I will unmute his mic. Yes, Sandeep Atram sir has some question.
Yes, sir.
Uh, I think so. His audio is not connected over here. I will search anyone other having this.
Okay.
If anyone having a question, please put it in a chat box. You can interact with our resource person. Yeah, sir. We got the one question from the Mukesh Babulkar.
Yes.
His question is regarding with the cost involved in the development of the nano product, and is there any nano product in Indian market?
Uh, Actually, it is a very good question. See, when we are talking about cost of product, no doubt some of the nano formulations may become costly depending on the formulation ingredient which we need. As I have discussed, suppose if you are targeting diseases like cancer where no cure or therapy is available, no doubt cost will be high. But in certain kind of diseases, we have a simple approaches also, as I have discussed by using citric acid, which is commonly available at home or in colleges. We can use citric acid to synthesize quantum dots, and whatever dyes like rhodamine or other expensive dyes which we are using to image the cell or inner component of cell, instead of that we can use quantum dots. So here we can see the economic aspect also. So as compared with the toxic chemicals like synthetic dyes, we can go for quantum dots. So no doubt, every technology will have certain advantages, disadvantages, but it is up to us that how we can modify that technology so that it will become cost effective as well as the society friendly technology. So I hope that you are satisfied with this answer. And your another query was what was that another thing?
Is there any nano product in Indian market?
Yes, yes. There are some diclofenac gel which is available in Indian market, which is in a nano form, diclofenac, which is converted in nanoparticles, and it is available in gel form. So this nano gel is available in market, and there are some companies which are dealing with some nano formulations in cosmetic field as well as drug delivery field. Liposomal markets are there, the liposomes which are made and available for asthma and other diseases. And what I said, nanotechnology is technology of coming future. Within a span of 10 or 20 years, or due to this COVID situation, I don't think it will take 20 years. Within a span of 10 years, because every country will increase its expenditure towards research and development. Because this is the best lesson what every country has taken, that even though they are having very good defense, or they are having weapons, then also they are not able to combat with pandemic situations. So every country will increase their funding towards research in a healthcare sector. So that's why in the coming years there will be maximum funding from every country for a healthcare, and there will be maximum research which will be economic for a society. I hope so.
Yes, sir. Second question from Dr. Ghanshyam Chauhan, sir. He is asking that can nanoparticle have the role in the treatment of COVID-19?
Sure, as I said, that the capsid or outer cell of virus, it is made up of some proteins. So we can have some antigens, and we can have that antigen directed drug delivery system, because what we said, if the virus is having size of near about 200 nanometer, we have to tailor made our drug delivery system which is less than 100 nanometer, and we should have a specificity towards the viral protein code. If we are accomplished that part, we are able to target the virus code protein, then definitely we can inject the drug. As what I am saying, I am talking about platform technology. Firstly, we need a drug. We should act on the viral RNA. That drug could bind on the targeted drug delivery system or nano drug delivery system, and that nano drug delivery system role will be to transport the drug from outer side of a viral code to inner side of viral code. So that could be possible.
Yes, I think so. He'll get his answer regarding with this question. Currently, the scenario is going on for the research work. There are the several aspects to be discussed on whether the nano will work or not. That will be a future.
Actually, most of research is going on. Yeah.
One more question from the Professor Suraj Yadav, sir. What about the effectiveness of the nanoparticle technique with the biodegradable or the natural polymers?
See, biodegradable or natural polymer, it comes to the composition what we are using. Like if we are using some biomaterials like gelatin, gelatin is naturally biodegradable. So no doubt it will easily remove from the body after a particular period of time. So these biomaterials or natural biomaterials can be used for fabricating a nano drug delivery system. There might be problem with certain drug delivery system which are metal nanoparticles or inorganic nanoparticles which show the toxicity or accumulation inside the body. So if we are dealing with such kind of nanoparticles, specifically inorganic or metal nanoparticles which are hard to clear from the body, in those cases we have to see the toxicological aspect. And if you see, that's why during my presentation I have shown one paper of mesoporous silica where we have studied the toxicity aspect, because we studied what would be the toxicity of this mesoporous silica on normal cell line. Because it is another fact that when material changes to nanoscale, its entire properties changes, and these properties will be the effectiveness as well as the what we can say the hard effect or undesired effect. They also may get enhanced. So it is our duty to study their effective as well as undesired effect.
Yes, thank you, sir. I think so. He will get his idea regarding with the nanoparticle and the polymers which are they are using for their research purposes. So I think so.
Yeah.
There, no more question right now. If there is any question regarding with this for this purposes, the recorded link of this session will be shared on the YouTube after some while. If you have any question regarding with this session, you can put the comments in a YouTube channel, and you will get reply from the our resource person, Dr. Prashant Deshmukh sir, in a short while.
Sure.
As he will get any question regarding with this one. So wonderful session, sir. You have given your valuable time for us to organize this webinar, and you have given a very effective speech on the nanoparticle current funding scenario. And it is overall grooming session for all the students, BPharm students, M.Pharm students, researchers, as well as faculty. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to invite Professor Rushali Panchai, madam. I will going to unmute her mic, so it will session of valedictory. Yeah, madam, you can continue with the valedictory session.
Yes, good afternoon to all.
Yeah, you are audible now.
I, Professor Rushali. Okay, sir. Okay. I, Professor Rushali Panchale, on behalf of Dr. Rajendra Gode Institute of Pharmacy and entire fraternity of institution, extend my sincere thanks to our beloved President, Honorable Gode sir, who always add his gesture of encouragement to all the efforts we take to arrange this kind of program. I am thankful to Honorable Dr. R.L. Bakal sir, Principal Dr. Rajendra Gode Institute of Pharmacy, and Honorable Professor H.S. Savakar sir, Principal Dr. Rajendra Gode College of Pharmacy, who guided us for effective execution of this webinar. I owe my special thanks to our honorable speaker, who is also one of our organizers, Dr. Prashant Deshmukh sir from H.R. Patel Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Shirpur, who spared his valuable time and shared his specialized scientific knowledge about concept of nanoscience and nanotechnology that has created a revolution. Recent advancement in nanomaterial engineering and research proposal writing and funding schemes. This will be beneficial to all of us, and it was worthwhile listening during this period of lockdown. We feel really fortunate, sir, to hear you. I now thank our organizing committee members, Professor P.V. Ajmere sir, Professor S.N. Hande sir, and Professor C.A. Gulani sir, whose efforts brought success to this webinar. And lastly, I thank all the research scholars, faculties, and students who showed their immense response that will encourage us to arrange more informative programs like this in future. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, for giving this valedictory session. I personally would like to take the opportunity to share my views regarding with this session. Dr. Prashant Deshmukh sir has given a wonderful session for the nanoparticle and funding resources. So I would like to thank Dr. Prashant Deshmukh sir on the behalf of the Dr. Rajendra Gode Institute of Pharmacy and Dr. Rajendra Gode College of Pharmacy for giving us as a resource person session regarding with this nanoparticle particulate drug delivery system. Thank you very much. Announcement for the participants. In a short while, you will receive the feedback form for this webinar. You have to fill it and you will obtain the certificate, those who are present for this webinar. Okay, thank you for taking a part to be a part of this webinar. Thank you very much. We will come soon with the new topic in a pharmaceutical sciences. Till then, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.